The rain tapped a steady rhythm against the windows, soft and insistent, like a memory refusing to fade. The old lake house creaked in the wind, the wooden floors groaning under the weight of history and time. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of damp wood and something faintly sweet like pine and nostalgia. Jason laughed as he dropped his duffel by the door, his voice easy, unguarded. I smiled, folding my jacket neatly over the back of the chair, pretending my heart wasn't thundering beneath my ribs. We had done this 100 times before. Sleepovers, weekend trips, quiet escapes from the noise of everything else. It was tradition. It was safe. At least it was supposed to be. But something about tonight felt different, though I couldn't say exactly why. Maybe it was the way Jason looked at me, a little longer than necessary. Or maybe it was me, too tired to wrestle my feelings back into the hidden corners where I usually kept them. He glanced around the room, frowning at the single bed. "Guess we're sharing," he said casually, tossing his keys onto the nightstand. No hesitation, no second thought, just the easy confidence of a man who never had to question where he stood with the world, or with me. "Yeah," I managed, forcing a chuckle. "Just like old times." We got ready for bed without ceremony. Teeth brushed, lights dimmed. Jason pulled off his shirt and climbed under the covers, completely at ease. I turned away, pretending to be absorbed in adjusting the window blinds, willing my pulse to slow, my mind to settle. I told myself I could handle this. I told myself I had handled it before. Sliding into bed beside him, I kept to my side, careful not to let our bodies touch. The mattress dipped under his weight, the warmth of his presence a silent temptation. Jason mumbled something about how tired he was and turned onto his side, facing away from me. His breathing evened out quickly, soft and deep. I stared at the ceiling, counting every inhale, every exhale, like a prayer. The storm outside grew, heavier, and the wind howled through the cracks in the windows. In the dim light, the room seemed to shrink, pressing us closer together. I thought about all the years we'd known each other, how natural it had always been, how safe. And yet, lying there now, it felt like a lie I had been telling myself for too long. My feelings for him weren't simple. They weren't safe. A floorboard creaked downstairs and I tensed, listening. But it was only the house settling, a familiar sound I had heard 1,000 times. Still, the noise left a strange tightness in my chest, as if it were a warning whispered just for me. I closed my eyes and tried to find sleep, but it wouldn't come. Not with Jason's slow breathing filling the dark and the terrible, beautiful closeness of him burning against my senses. I turned onto my side, facing away from him, and hoped, foolishly, desperately, that the night would pass quietly. I woke to a strange tension in the air, the kind that hovers before something inevitable happens. The storm outside had softened into a steady drizzle, the sound like whispers against the roof. I blinked into the dim light, the room bathed in a soft, gray-blue hue. Jason lay beside me, breathing deeply, utterly still, lost in a world I could never enter. At first, I thought something had startled me awake. Maybe the wind, maybe a dream. But then I noticed it, the small shift of fabric, the slight arch under the blanket near Jason's hips. My chest tightened, breath caught somewhere between disbelief and guilt. Morning wood, a completely natural, unconscious response, harmless, innocent. Yet it struck me with an intimacy so brutal, so uninvited, that I could barely breathe. I should have turned away. I should have closed my eyes and buried the sight in the dark corners of my mind. But I didn't. I couldn't. My gaze lingered, tracing the outlines my conscience begged me to ignore. A cruel part of me whispered that this was the closest I would ever get, the closest to touching a dream I had no right to hold. Shame prickled against my skin, hot and raw. I hated myself for looking, hated myself more for the way my heart responded, an aching throb of desire wrapped in mourning. He trusted me completely, blindly. And here I was, betraying that trust in silence, in stillness, without lifting a finger. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the image away, but it had branded itself into me, vivid and inescapable. His slow, steady breathing filled the space between us, each breath a reminder of how far apart we truly were. I rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling, feeling like a thief in the night, stealing moments I was never meant to have. A small movement startled me, Jason shifting slightly in his sleep, mumbling incoherent words into the pillow. My body tensed instinctively. His leg brushed against mine under the covers, the barest touch, featherlight. But it was enough to send a jolt through me. I lay frozen, terrified that even the smallest reaction might wake him, might reveal everything I had fought so hard to bury. The logical part of me screamed to move away, to create distance, to salvage whatever shred of dignity I had left. But I stayed rooted in place, heart hammering, torn between loyalty and longing. Every second felt stretched thin, pulled taut with tension that could snap at any moment. In the stillness, a single thought echoed, merciless and true. He would never know what this moment meant to me. He would never understand how something so small could unravel me so completely. Jason murmured again, shifting closer, his body instinctively seeking warmth. I swallowed hard, tears burning behind my eyes, and pressed my palms flat against the mattress, grounding myself, reminding myself that this silent ache was mine to bear alone. And still, I didn't move. I must have drifted into a shallow, restless sleep because when I opened my eyes again, the room was brighter, the rain had stopped, and Jason was stirring beside me. For a second, disoriented by the light and the lingering heat of him so close, I forgot where I was. His arm brushed against mine as he shifted onto his back, a low, contented sigh escaping his lips. I turned my head slightly, pretending to adjust the pillow, stealing a glance. His face was relaxed, almost boyish in sleep. There was something painfully pure about him like this, unguarded, unaware of the chaos he stirred just by existing. I ached for him in a way that words could never reach, a longing so deep it felt like it had settled into my bones. Then, as if drawn by some cruel force, my gaze flickered downward again. The blanket was rumpled around his waist, and even though I knew I shouldn't look, I caught the unmistakable outline of him still hard, still vulnerable in a way he would never intend for me to see. Panic clawed up my throat. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the heat from my face, willing my heart to slow its frantic pace. I had to get out of the bed. I had to put distance between us before I crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. But just as I started to inch away, Jason groaned softly and blinked awake, his gaze hazy and unfocused. For a heartbeat, he stared at the ceiling, his expression blank. Then he turned his head toward me, a lazy, sleepy smile tugging at his lips. "Morning," he mumbled, voice rough with sleep. "Morning," I managed, my voice thin, unnatural. He stretched, arms reaching above his head, the blanket slipping lower on his hips. I forced my gaze upward, fixing my eyes on the cracked ceiling like it held the secrets to salvation. Jason didn't seem to notice anything unusual. He rubbed his face, yawned, and sat up, scratching the back of his head. "You sleep okay?" he asked casually, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. "Yeah, fine," I lied, pulling the covers tighter around myself as if they could shield me from the terrible intimacy of the morning. Jason stood, his body silhouetted against the pale light filtering through the curtains. He moved around the room with the same easy grace he always had, oblivious to the silent war raging inside me. I watched him grab a hoodie from his bag and tug it over his head, hiding himself from view, sealing off that glimpse of something I was never meant to see. "Coffee," he offered, glancing back at me with that same unbreakable, infuriating warmth. I nodded, afraid that if I spoke, my voice would betray me. As he padded out of the room, barefoot and careless, the door swinging shut behind him, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Alone again, I sat there, heart pounding, wondering how much longer I could survive pretending nothing had changed. The smell of coffee drifted up the narrow staircase, rich and bitter, pulling me from the fog of my thoughts. I sat there a moment longer, grounding myself, rehearsing the mask I would have to wear. The mask of indifference. The mask of friendship. The mask that hid the trembling truth underneath. When I finally made my way downstairs, Jason was standing at the counter, two mismatched mugs in front of him, tapping absently at his phone. He looked up as I entered, flashing a crooked smile. That made my chest ache. "Finally," he teased, "I was about to come drag you out of bed." I laughed, too loudly, the sound brittle. Jason didn't seem to notice. He slid a mug toward me, the ceramic warm against my palms. I clung to it like a lifeline, pretending the steam in my face explained the sudden sting in my eyes. We sipped our coffee in silence, the easy kind that used to feel comfortable. But now it pressed against me, thick and suffocating. I kept my gaze carefully trained on the chipped surface of the table, afraid that if I met his eyes, he would see too much. Jason set his mug down with a soft clink and leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You're acting weird," he said, a note of genuine concern creeping into his voice. I shrugged, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Just tired, I guess." He didn't look convinced. He drummed his fingers against the table, thoughtful, then tilted his head, that familiar, infuriatingly perceptive look crossing his face. "You sure everything's good?" he pressed, softer now. I opened my mouth, desperate to say something, anything, that would push him away from the truth. But nothing came out. My throat tightened painfully around the words I couldn't speak. How could I tell him? How could I ruin everything with a truth that would only drive him away? After a beat, Jason sighed and stood, stretching his arms over his head. "All right," he said lightly, masking whatever worry still lingered. "We'll just have a lazy day. Chill, watch movies, be useless." I nodded, grateful for the escape he offered without knowing it. He grabbed the remote and flopped onto the couch, sprawling out in a way that made my heart twist. Careless, comfortable, completely unaware of the devastation he carried with him like a second skin. I settled into the armchair across the room, putting distance between us, a silent wall he would never notice. The TV flickered to life, the noise filling the space between us, drowning out the words I would never say. As the rain picked up again outside, tapping against the windows like a ghost that refused to leave, I sat there with my coffee growing, cold in my hands. Watching him laugh at something on the screen, oblivious. Watching the life I could never have, framed in the soft golden light of a Sunday morning. And I wondered, not for the first time, how long a heart could break in silence before it stopped beating altogether.